on the Moodle page. All right. And so chapter 23 is basically not necessarily a continuation of chapter 22. You know, chapter 22 dealt with budgets, right? And, establishing a budget. And, so we first of all came up with a number of units that we thought we were going to sell, right? And we talked to the sales force and, they came up with, number of units. And so we did the sales budget, number of units times the estimated selling price, and that would give us our total sales, right? Then we did the production budget, and the production budget had the three components, right? We had direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead. Well, when we were doing those, we use these things called standards, all right? And a standard is just that. It's something that we expect to happen, all right? And so in chapter 22, okay, we use those standards to create the budgets in chapter 22, okay? And, we, came up with a standard number of input units, right? And we came up with a standard cost for those things, all right? And so with using those information, we were able to establish what our budget was. Okay? What chapter 23 does is it compares what actually happened, right, to what we thought or we budgeted. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use a flexible budget. If you guys remember what that was, a flexible budget was adjusting our budget according to the number of units that we sell, and or produce. All right. And so that's what we're basically going to do in chapter 23. Now, in my other section, and I'm only going to work through this one because, it was a little bit confusing, and by me working it out, a lot of the lights came on. All right. And if I remember correctly, it was your second homework problem, which was PE 23-2A. All right. And so we're going to do PE, and this is your homework, 23-2A. And what it says Bellingham Company produces a product that requires 4 standard hours per unit, okay, at a standard hourly rate of $20. They actually produced, all right, 15,000 units, and to make those 15,000 units, it actually took them 61,800 hours, okay, and it cost them $19.85 per hour. Okay. And then it goes on to ask you what the direct labor rate variance, time variance, and total cost variance are. And so those, if you've watched the videos or you read the chapter, both direct materials and direct labor are variable costs. And so the calculation of these three ratios are identical, all right? Because really what we're doing is we're saying, hey, for our budgeted numbers, we had a standard price, and we multiplied that times some sort of standard quantity. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to compare that to the actual price, okay, and the actual quantity, right, that we produce. And so I personally like this 3-column method of calculating the variances. The reason being is if you know how to do this, you can answer one of the 3 questions that could be asked over direct materials and direct labor variances. All right. Those questions are, hey, what was the total variance? Okay, the total variance is going to be the difference between what we thought was going to happen, right, this budgeted number over here, okay, compared to what actually happened over here. This is what's referred to as the direct labor cost variance. All right. Then, all right, this 3 column, we haven't made the 3 column. We can break it into the other 2 variances that we're going to have. We're going to have, right, either the price or the rate variance. Because this is a direct labor, okay, they use a rate because we pay our employees a rate, not a price. They're not the price. I mean, I'll explain that in a minute. All right, so direct labor, all right, rate variance. Okay. This will also tell us the direct labor time variance. Okay. And as I said earlier, these are the 3 types of variances that can be generated for both direct materials and direct labor. We're happening to do the direct labor one. And so when we're looking at these variances, we need to understand that we produced actually 15,000 output units. Okay? And so we produced 15,000 output units. Okay, so I thought you might enjoy that pretty color. All right, so that plays in, all right, to our calculation. So I'm going to change this to red so that we have a, different from our black colors. And so the easy one really to find out is the budget side, all right, because it says that, well, both of them are actually easy, all right, that we have $20, okay, and it took us 4 hours to make whatever we're making, all right, so let's just say it's tables, all right, we're assembling a table, all right, and so it takes 4 hours to put together a table, all right? Well, we need to know that we're going to multiply the hourly rate of $20, okay, times the $4 per hour, okay, or not per hour, but per unit, and we're going to multiply this, all right, times the 15,000 units. So we're going to take the $4 times 15,000 units. Okay, that comes out to be 60,000. Okay, hours. Okay, this is not a dollar here. My bad. Okay. All right, those are hours. Does that make sense? The other class, this is where they struggled because they're like, wait, we're comparing 4, all right, to 61,000 hours, but that seems odd. Well, no, because we had to use this number here, okay, because those are our output units. Okay. Our input units are 4 hours per output unit. Okay, and so the input units would be the 60,000 hours. Well, the actual numbers were given to you. All right, we had the actual price was $19.85. And we multiplied that times the actual hours to make 15,000 tables of 61,800. Okay. And so what we're able to do, let me change. Okay. If we do the math here, all right, we took the 60,000 times 20. I guess I probably didn't need to do that. We end up with 1,200,000. And if we took the 1985 and multiplied that times the 61,800, we'd come up with 1,226,000. 730. Okay. And so overall, to produce 15,000 tables, we thought it was going to take $1.2 million, but in reality, it took 1.22673. That means, right, we're over budget, aren't we? Yeah, we're over budget by 26,730. Okay. And so this is the direct labor cost variance, and that is unfavorable. Okay. I think the textbook just uses a U. All right, so that's unfavorable. So why are we unfavorable? Is it because of the rate or because of our efficiency? All right, and so as I said earlier, I want to explain, right, these two things to you here. Okay. We have the rate variance. Okay. Oops. I meant to do that in red. All right. This rate variance and this time variance. This textbook is really the only time I've ever seen them referred to as a rate variance and a time variance. Outside of this textbook, right, this is usually called a, I should say, the direct labor rate is really a price. All right. And so if you get out of this textbook, all right, know that rate and price are the same thing. All right. Where over here we have the direct labor time variance. Okay. Outside of this textbook, this is called an efficiency variance. So we need to figure out, which was the rate and what was the time. And so really what we're going to do, all right, to figure out the rate difference, we're going to take, all right, the price, okay, the actual price, and we're going to compare that, all right, to the standard price. And so if we're going to make a middle column, we're going to bring this standard price over here, standard price, and we're going to multiply that times the actual quantity. And so what we've done is we've constructed our middle column. Right? And so we're going to take the actual quantity, right, from the actual, and we got the 61,800. And we're going to multiply that times the standard price of $20. So if we just multiply that out, 20 times 61,800, we come up with 1,236,000. And so if we're looking at the rate difference, we're going to compare the difference between these two guys. Right. And so we subtract 1,226,730. Okay. And this comes out to be, let me erase those. Okay. This comes out to be 9,270. So let me ask you, is that favorable or unfavorable? Well, really what we're doing is we're comparing the prices, right? So we thought we were going to spend 20 bucks and we actually only spent $19. That's under budget, isn't it? Okay. If something is under budget, that is favorable. That's favorable. Well, because we did the middle column correctly, we can now compare the difference between these two. Okay. And we can find out that we end up with a 36, oops, my bad. Hitting too many buttons here. A $36,000 time variance. So let me ask you, is that favorable or unfavorable? Hang on, somebody's just wanting to get in. Connor.
Unfavorable.
Yeah, that is unfavorable, because what we're looking at is we're looking at the comparison, right, of the hours that we spent. We thought to make 15,000 tables, it was going to take us 60,000 hours. Well, it actually took us, right, 61,000 hours. So this is unfavorable variance. Now, hopefully you see that the difference between this unfavorable variance and this favorable variance, okay? So if you took the 36,000, subtracted 9,270, you end up with this 26,730. And so what really happened? Right? Well, we don't really know, okay? But I can make some assumptions, all right? The first assumption I will make is that, hey, instead of hiring the skilled laborers, okay, that was going to cost us $20 per hour, we actually hired the unskilled laborer, right? And we only paid them $19.85. Right? However, that really didn't pay off. I mean, 15 cents difference, which is not really extreme. The unskilled laborers didn't know how to do the work. That's why it took them an additional 1,800 hours to do 15,000 tables. And so we shouldn't have done that. Okay, we should have kept the skilled laborers, and as long as their efficiencies, all right, held true to the standard, we would have been better off. Because in essence, by this right here, okay, this is we lost money. We lost $26,730 because we didn't follow what we had budgeted or we had planned originally. And so whether you're doing direct materials or direct labor, right, the calculation of these three variances are identical. The reason being is because they are variable in their variable costs. Direct materials is a variable cost and direct labor is a variable cost. However, when we talk about factory, that's not what I wanted. When we talk about factory overhead, we have two different components, right? We have the variable factory overhead, and we have the fixed factory overhead. Right? Okay. A variable factory overhead is something that we can control, right? So if you think about the examples of variable factory overhead, probably the easiest one to think about is utilities, right? Because the more units we make, the more time we're going to be in the factory, and the more we're going to run our machines, therefore the more variable costs. But we can control that, right? We can control the number of lights that are on. Okay, if you've ever worked in a factory, it's funny how they're referred to as the shoulder seasons. Okay, so spring and fall are considered to be shoulder seasons on both sides of winter and summer, because winter and summer are the extremes. All right, and so during spring, usually factories, they turn their heat off, trying to save money, okay, by not running, up the utilities. In the fall, they turn the air conditioning off, right? In the summertime, they also, hopefully they have some skylights, okay, they turn the overhead lights off, right? Why? Because the sun shines longer in the summertime. It doesn't set until, 9:30 or something. So they take advantage of those things. They have control. I actually went to a Kmart right before they closed, right? And in order to save money, they had turned every other light off. And apparently they had that ability, okay? But what they were trying to do is they were trying to save the utilities, all right? Something that they could control, all right? And so when it comes to the variable factory overhead, right, they refer to that as a controllable variance. Okay, there's two L's there. Controllable, right? A controllable variance. When it comes to the fixed factory overhead, you don't have control over those. Think about that. What is the fixed cost? Well, there's depreciation, right? Straight line depreciation. That's pretty much fixed, right? You can't, you can't control, all right, the depreciation for your building. You've already purchased the building. Unless it's fully depreciated, you don't have control over that. What impacts the fixed factory overhead is the volume. Okay. The volume variance. Right? And so just a little heads up, because you guys took the time, all right, to come to class, right, I want you to know that you are not going to have to calculate the factory overhead variances. Okay? What you're going to have to be able to do is identify which ones are the controllable variances and be able to identify a controllable variance, and which ones would be fixed factory overhead or the volume variance. And why this is the volume variance, right, is, in our scenario, we had done 15,000 units, right? But let's say that we actually budgeted, okay, 20,000 units. Okay, let's say that we had fixed factory overhead, okay, of, I don't know, $90,000. Okay, if we had fixed factory overhead of 90 and we budgeted 20,000 units, okay, our variance for that would have been 90, right, divided by 20, and a beautiful, okay, budget would have equaled, right, $4.50 per unit. Okay. But in our scenario, the actual, we did 15,000, right? So if we had the same cost, all right, because fixed are fixed, right? Okay, we had $90,000. It doesn't matter if we did 1 unit or 1,000 units. Okay, fixed is fixed, right? And so the 90 now divided by the 15, the actual number of units that we did, increases, right? The 90 divided by 15, increases the variable cost per unit, or I should say not variable, the $6 per unit. The problem with that is that fixed is not variable, is it? Fixed is fixed. It doesn't matter if we did 20,000, 15,000, or 8,000, okay? Our fixed costs are always going to be $90,000. And so, all right, the number of units that we do, the volume, okay, dictates, right, the standard fixed cost or the standard fixed factory overhead cost. Right? So again, you're not going to have to do any calculation. You just need to understand that. Okay? But I'll tell you what, you are going to have to do these kind of calculations up here. You're going to have to do those on the exam. Right? I may ask for the total cost. Right? I may ask for the rate or the price. Okay. I may ask for the time or quantity. So price and quantity are the names that are used for the materials. All right. Any questions?